There are objects in this world that feel more alive than they should. Not machines, not relics of gold or stone, but things far more fragile, made only of ink and paper. Yet across history, they have been feared, as if they held a heartbeat of their own. Books. Most books are harmless companions. They teach, they comfort, they pass time. But scattered through the centuries are others whispered about with unease. Texts said to be cursed, forbidden, or dangerous. Volumes that were locked away, burned, or kept hidden, not because they were useless, but because people believed they were too powerful to be read. Tonight, we're not looking at myths or movies. We're opening the covers of real manuscripts that exist, kept behind glass, buried in archives, or whispered about in legends that refuse to die. These are works that have been blamed for madness, for curses, even for wars. Some are filled with pages no one can understand. Others contain instructions so dark that even their owners tried to destroy them. And a few aren't supposed to exist at all, yet copies continue to appear in the shadows. What makes a book dangerous? Is it the words written on the page or the belief people attach to them? For some, danger lies in forbidden knowledge, recipes for alchemy, rituals for summoning, secrets that promise power over life and death. For others, the threat comes not from what is written, but how people respond to it. A single book has been enough to spark riots, to inspire revolutions, or to twist lies into centuries of persecution. But there's something else too, a deeper unease. Because words are strange things. They can outlive the people who wrote them. They can leap centuries untouched, their meanings hidden until someone finally whispers them aloud again. And sometimes, those words refuse to fade, no matter how many fires consume their pages. So wherever you are right now, whether you're tucked into bed, resting quietly, or just letting the day slip away, settle in. Let the world outside fade, and come with me as we step carefully into the libraries of history, past the shelves dusted with centuries, through doors that were never meant to be opened. This is not a story about ordinary books. These are the manuscripts that refuse to die, the volumes feared, forbidden, and forever shrouded in mystery. And our journey begins with one of the strangest of them all, a manuscript that has been read by thousands, yet understood by no one. The Voynich Manuscript. Imagine holding a book that no one in the world can read. Its pages are filled with words, carefully written, line after line, as if meant to be understood. Yet not a single sentence has ever been translated. The letters are graceful, flowing, almost familiar, but they belong to no known language. Between them, strange illustrations crowd the margins, plants that don't exist in nature, star charts that map impossible skies, and diagrams of women immersed in green pools of liquid, connected by tubes like some forgotten machine. This is the Voynich Manuscript. Discovered in 1912 by a rare book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich, the manuscript quickly became the most baffling text in the world. Carbon dating of the parchment places it in the early 1400s, most likely created in Central Europe. That makes it more than 600 years old. Yet in all that time, no one, not cryptographers, not linguists, not even supercomputers, has ever been able to decipher its contents. The manuscript contains over 200 pages, each densely written in a script that appears deliberate, structured, and consistent. This isn't the work of random scribbles or a forger's idle hand. The text follows patterns, words repeat, certain characters appear more often, and the grammar seems orderly. It behaves like a real language, but it isn't one we know. And then there are the illustrations, botanical drawings of plants with twisted stems, bulbous roots and flowers that resemble nothing found on Earth. Some look almost plausible, as if based on familiar herbs but altered in subtle, unsettling ways. Others are impossible altogether, hybrids of different species, things that seem to belong to another world. Next, the astronomical section, diagrams of stars, moons, and what appear to be zodiac signs, but not drawn in any recognizable fashion. Some pages show circular charts with unknown symbols, as if charting constellations no human eye has ever seen. And then, perhaps the most unsettling of all, the so-called biological section. Page after page of nude women immersed in pools of water, connected by elaborate pipe systems. Some appear to be bathing, others engaged in mysterious rituals. The illustrations seem both medical and fantastical at once, as though the manuscript hides knowledge of the human body through a lens we don't understand. For centuries, the Voynich Manuscript has attracted the best minds in code breaking. During World War II, cryptographers who cracked Nazi codes tried their hand at it. They failed. In recent years, artificial intelligence has been trained on its script, searching for hidden patterns or links to known languages. The results? Still inconclusive. Every attempt to solve it ends with more questions. Some believe it is a lost work of medicine, a kind of herbal and alchemical guide written in a cipher. Others suggest it could be a hoax, an elaborate forgery designed to deceive a wealthy patron. Yet the level of effort, the consistency of the script, and the centuries of persistence make the hoax theory feel strangely hollow. And then there are the darker theories, that the manuscript was deliberately written in an unknown language to conceal knowledge that was never meant to be shared. That its contents describe sciences or practices centuries ahead of their time. Or perhaps knowledge from somewhere else entirely, something we are not ready to read. 600 years later, the Voynich Manuscript sits in Yale University's Beinecker Rare Book Library. Anyone can look at its pages. The manuscript has been digitized and made public. Thousands of eyes have studied its words, and yet not a single soul can tell you what they mean. It is perhaps the perfect mystery. A book that exists, that can be touched, turned, examined, and yet it remains silent. A manuscript that waits, as if for the right reader to come along. And if one day that reader arrives, what exactly will the pages reveal? There are books that feel heavy when you hold them, not just in weight, but in presence. And then there's the Codex Gigas, known as the Devil's Bible. It is the largest surviving medieval manuscript in the world. 3 feet tall, nearly 9 inches thick, bound in wooden covers wrapped in leather, and weighing over 160 pounds. Too large for one person to lift comfortably. It takes 2 people just to open it on a table. Created in the early 13th century in what is now the Czech Republic, the Codex Gigas contains hundreds of pages written in neat Latin script. Inside you'll find the Old and New Testaments, historical texts, medical knowledge, calendars, exorcisms, and even a record of local history. In many ways, it was intended to be a library, bound into a single book. But what makes it infamous is not just its size or its contents, it's the story of how it was made. According to legend, the Codex was written by a single monk in the Benedictine monastery of Podlajic. But this was no ordinary work of devotion. The monk had broken his vows in such a terrible way that he faced the ultimate punishment, being walled alive inside the monastery. To save himself, he begged for mercy, promising to create a book that would contain all human knowledge, and he swore he would finish it in a single night. As midnight drew near, the monk realized his task was impossible. The book was too vast, the work too much for any human hand in so little time. And so, according to the legend, he made a pact. He called upon the devil himself, offering his soul in exchange for help. By morning, the Codex Gigas was complete, and on one of its pages, in full color, larger than life, sits the devil. It is perhaps the most chilling illustration in any medieval manuscript. The figure fills the entire page: green skin, horns, clawed hands, and a leering expression. His tongue is forked. His body squats between two towers, as if imprisoned inside the very book he helped to create. Across from him, in equal size, is a heavenly city. Heaven and hell, locked forever on facing pages. The presence of this portrait is so unsettling, so unique that it gave the Codex its enduring name, the Devil's Bible. But if the legend of its creation is terrifying, the story of its survival is just as strange. For centuries, the book was kept in monasteries, admired and feared in equal measure. In 1648, during the 30 Years' War, the Swedish army looted the city of Prague and carried the Codex Gigas back to Stockholm as spoils of war. There, it survived fires that consumed entire royal libraries. While buildings burned, while other manuscripts turned to ash, the Devil's Bible endured, barely singed at the edges. Today, the Codex Gigas is preserved in the National Library of Sweden. Scholars who have studied the handwriting believe it was, in fact, written by a single scribe, though it would have taken not one night, but decades of steady labor, as many as 30 years of work. The Devil's Pact, perhaps, was only ever a metaphor. Yet still, the book's presence cannot be denied. To stand before it is to feel something immense, something beyond ordinary parchment and ink. The devil's gaze seems to follow you. The weight of centuries presses down from its pages. And even now, after surviving fire, war, and legend, the Codex Gigas remains, as it always has, an unsettling monument to the power of words and to the shadows that sometimes linger in the margins of history. In the court of Queen Elizabeth I, there was a man who seemed to walk the line between science and sorcery. His name was John Dee, mathematician, astronomer, navigator, and trusted advisor to the Queen herself. But to many, Dee was more than a scholar. He was a magician, a seeker of hidden truths, and a man obsessed with unlocking the secrets of the universe. Among his possessions was a manuscript, unlike any other. It was called the Book of Soiga. On the surface, the book appeared to be a mix of astrology, angelic invocations, and cryptic writings. But it was its final section that made it infamous. Hundreds of pages, filled with tables of letters arranged in strange patterns, almost like coded grids. Even for a man like Dee, who spent his life studying ciphers and mysteries, the meaning of these tables remained out of reach. Dee believed the book contained sacred knowledge, but knowledge that could only be revealed through communication with angels. To him, the text was dangerous, deadly even, if interpreted incorrectly. Legend has it that the Book of Soiga would kill anyone who read it without truly understanding its message, consuming their mind in confusion and despair. Dee turned to his scryer, Edward Kelly, a man who claimed he could communicate with otherworldly beings. Together they summoned spirits, asking them to explain the meaning of Soiga's coded tables. The answer they received was chilling. The angels told them that only the Archangel Michael could unlock the book's secrets, and that knowledge was forbidden to mortals. The warning was clear. The book was not meant for human eyes. After Dee's death, the Book of Soiga disappeared. For centuries it was thought lost forever, remembered only in fragments of correspondence. Scholars assumed it had been destroyed, another vanished curiosity from the age of magic and alchemy. And then in the 20th century, something remarkable happened. Researchers uncovered not one, but two surviving copies, hidden all along in the collections of the British Library and the Bodleian Library at Oxford. The rediscovery reignited the mystery. Modern cryptographers have tried to break the code of its strange tables. Some believe they are connected to mathematical systems, others to angelic languages that Dee himself claimed to channel in his seances. And yet, just like in Dee's time, the heart of the book remains sealed. 16th century ink, resting quietly on paper for over 400 years, still holds a secret that not even our most advanced computers can unlock. The Book of Soiga waits, and perhaps just as the angels warned, its knowledge will remain forbidden until the day humanity is ready to read what it was never meant to see. Some books whisper, others command, and then there are those that feel like they were never meant to be read aloud at all. One of the most notorious of these is the Picatrix. Originally written in Arabic around the 10th or 11th century, it was known as Ghayat al-Hakam, the aim of the sage. The book was vast, sprawling across hundreds of pages, weaving together philosophy, astrology, alchemy, and ritual magic. Later, when it spread into Europe during the Middle Ages, it became the Picatrix, and with it came a reputation both powerful and dangerous. On the surface, the book is a manual of astral magic. It describes how the stars and planets are not just distant lights, but living forces that influence everything on Earth. According to the text, if you understood the alignments of the heavens, if you knew the right invocations and sacrifices, you could harness that celestial power. The instructions are precise and deeply unsettling. Detailed recipes for talismans made from metals, stones, and herbs. Rituals performed under certain planetary hours. Summonings meant to draw down the essence of Mars, Venus, Jupiter, or Saturn into physical objects. The book even outlines how to channel spirits associated with the planets, beings described as both guides and dangers. It is not a book meant for casual reading. Even medieval scholars recognized the risks. When the Picatrix began circulating in Latin translation, it quickly attracted suspicion. The Catholic Church condemned it, calling it a handbook of black magic. For centuries, possession of the text could bring accusations of sorcery, and yet it was quietly copied, studied, and preserved in hidden libraries. Renaissance magicians such as Marsilio Ficino and Cornelius Agrippa are believed to have drawn inspiration from it. Even if they denied it publicly, the Picatrix lingered in their shadows. Part of its danger lies in how practical it seems. Unlike vague myths or symbolic allegories, the text reads like instructions, step by step, ritual by ritual, as if daring the reader to try. To hold the Picatrix is to feel both temptation and warning. The temptation of knowledge that promises control over fate itself, and the warning that such control comes at a price. Today, the book survives in scattered manuscripts across European libraries. Some locked away, others digitized and made available to scholars. Modern readers approach it cautiously, part historical curiosity, part occult manual. But the unease remains, because every page seems to suggest that the stars are watching, that they are waiting to answer if only you know the right words to call them down. and as history shows, sometimes calling is the most dangerous act of all. Some books are dangerous because of what they contain, others because of what people believe they contain. The Necronomicon belongs to the second kind. It began not in a medieval monastery, nor in some forgotten library, but in the imagination of a writer. In the early 20th century, H.P. Lovecraft, master of cosmic horror, created the book as part of his mythos. He described it as an ancient grimoire, written by a mad Arab named Abdul al-Hazred, filled with forbidden knowledge, incantations, and accounts of eldritch beings that slumber beyond the stars. Lovecraft never intended it to be real. The Necronomicon was fiction, an invention meant to lend his stories an eerie sense of depth and authenticity. A book that characters could reference, a thread that tied his tales together. But Lovecraft wrote with such conviction, such detail, that the line between invention and reality blurred. Readers began to wonder, could the Necronomicon exist? Over time, forged copies appeared. Publishers released versions claiming to be translations of the original. Some were obvious hoaxes, little more than rebranded occult manuals. Others were crafted with elaborate detail, dense texts of strange diagrams and pseudo-Arabic scripts, made to look like something unearthed from a forgotten archive. To this day, bookstores sometimes carry volumes titled The Necronomicon, each claiming a link to the forbidden book. And here is where imagination becomes dangerous. For in the hands of believers, the Necronomicon ceases to be fiction. It becomes a real spell book, a guide to rituals, a doorway to forces the reader believes they are summoning. Lovecraft, who was a skeptic and materialist, might have laughed at the idea, but others have taken it seriously. There are stories of occult groups attempting to use the text in rituals, convinced that the words on the page carry power. This is the paradox of the Necronomicon. It is a book that never was. Yet in being believed, it has become. Its danger lies not in what Lovecraft wrote, but in what people see in it. A mirror that reflects their fears, their desires, their hunger for the forbidden. And perhaps that is the most unsettling truth, that sometimes a fiction can inspire more belief, more ritual, more fear than a real manuscript ever could. So, the Necronomicon lingers, half myth, half forgery, wholly dangerous, not because of the words it contains, but because of the people who want so badly for them to be true. Some manuscripts read like stories, filled with allegory and symbol. Others read like warnings. And then there is one that reads like instructions, clear, cold, methodical. It is known today as the Voynich Manual of Demonic Magic. Written in Latin around the 15th century, the manual is a grimoire devoted almost entirely to necromancy, the practice of summoning and commanding spirits. Its pages contain no poetry, no moral teaching, no guiding philosophy. Instead, it offers step-by-step directions. The text describes how to summon demons, how to bind them with incantations, and how to use them to achieve power. There are rituals for invisibility, for compelling others to obedience, for discovering hidden treasures. Each one comes with precise instructions, the right time of night, the necessary prayers, the diagrams to be drawn, the words to be spoken. But unlike other grimoires, the Voynich Manual shows little concern for divine balance. Many books of magic at least nod to calling angels or invoking God's protection before dealing with spirits. This one does not. It is a handbook of black magic in its starkest form, its words direct and unapologetic. To medieval readers, such a book was not only dangerous, it was damning. Possessing it could bring charges of heresy, or witchcraft. The manuscript was banned, hidden away, its very existence whispered about in secrecy. For centuries, it lay buried in collections, its pages rarely turned, its rituals unspoken. And yet the survival of the Voynich Manual raises unsettling questions. Who wrote it? For whom was it intended? Was it the work of a scholar, recording knowledge without belief? Or was it a working guide for someone who truly sought to command the dead? Today, the manual rests in the Bavarian State Library in Munich, from which it takes its name. Scholars can study its pages safely as a historical artifact, but the words themselves remain the same, precise, chilling, and unwavering. What lingers most is not just the fear of what might happen if the rituals were followed. It is the realization that someone, centuries ago, wrote them down in the first place, with care, with purpose, believing or perhaps knowing that the instructions meant something. The Voynich Manual is not a legend or a forgery. It is real. It exists, and like all books of its kind, its danger lies not in the parchment, but in the possibility that one day someone may choose to read it, not as history, but as a guide. Among grimoires, there is one that holds a reputation darker than all the rest, a book so infamous that even whispers of its name have carried unease for centuries. It is called the Grand Grimoire, said to have been written in the 16th century. Though some claim earlier, the book is unlike most medieval texts of magic. Where others cloak themselves in allegory or hide behind layers of symbol, the Grand Grimoire is said to speak plainly. It is not a book about summoning angels or calling on the stars. It is a book about summoning Lucifer himself. According to legend, the text provides step-by-step instructions for making a pact with the devil. It outlines the ritual for summoning spirits, binding them, and ultimately negotiating with the ruler of hell. The language is said to be stark, the purpose direct, to grant the reader power, wealth, or knowledge in exchange for their soul. Of course, few have ever seen a copy. Much of its reputation comes from rumor, passed along in fragments. Yet those fragments are enough. They paint the Grand Grimoire not as a collection of folklore or harmless superstition, but as a manual for opening doors best left closed. What makes the legend more unsettling is this. Copies are said to exist in the archives of the Vatican itself, kept under lock and key in the secret archives. Not displayed, not discussed, but preserved. According to some accounts, the Church keeps it not to use, but to contain, so that no one else might. Whether those claims are true or not, the idea endures. A book too dangerous to burn, too potent to destroy, quietly hidden instead. Even today, the Grand Grimoire is whispered about in occult circles. Some claim to own fragments or reproductions, though most are forgeries, written by opportunists hoping to profit from fear. But the fascination persists, the thought that somewhere, in a forgotten chest or sealed library, a real copy might still exist, waiting. And perhaps that is why its legend refuses to fade. Because if the book is real, then so is its promise. And if its promise is real, then the most dangerous text of all is one that offers not just forbidden knowledge, but temptation. A book that doesn't just ask to be read, it asks to be obeyed. Some manuscripts are small, bound neatly, easy to carry. The Ripley scrolls are nothing like that. They are long, unrolling for meters at a time, like ancient banners or medieval maps, painted with vibrant colors, filled with strange symbols. They stretch out like visions from a dream. Created in the 15th century, the scrolls are attributed to George Ripley, an English alchemist whose name became legendary across Europe. Though it's unclear if Ripley himself ever painted them, the manuscripts that bear his name survive in more than 20 copies. Each one a little different, each one carrying the same secret promise, the Philosopher's Stone. The scrolls are guides, or so they seem, to the great work of alchemy, the transmutation of base metals into gold, the search for a substance that could purify, heal, and perhaps even grant immortality. But the instructions are hidden beneath layers of riddle and symbol. Dragons devour their own tails. Kings are bathed in fiery cauldrons. Suns and moons merge in strange unions. Bottles, furnaces, and cryptic phrases stretch across the parchment, as if the scroll itself were alive with transformation. To the untrained eye, it looks like chaos. To an alchemist, it might look like revelation. Yet, even to scholars, the meaning remains elusive. The imagery is dense, allegorical, encoded in ways that resist simple translation. Was it meant to conceal the process from the unworthy? Or was it less about chemistry and more about spiritual rebirth, the transformation of the soul as much as of metal? What unsettles is not just the imagery, but the conviction with which it was drawn. Whoever created the Ripley scrolls believed they contained knowledge worth guarding in pictures and riddles. Knowledge powerful enough to change matter itself, or life itself. Over centuries, kings and emperors sought out alchemists who claimed to possess fragments of this secret. Some ruined themselves in the pursuit, others vanished into obscurity. But the scrolls endured, passed down, locked away in libraries, their strange illustrations as vivid now as when they were first painted. Today, the Ripley scrolls lie in museums and collections, unrolled carefully, studied by historians, admired for their beauty. Yet their core remains intact, a guide written in code, its meaning sealed, a promise of gold, a hint of immortality, and a warning perhaps that some transformations are not meant for human hands. In the myths of ancient Egypt, there was a god who embodied knowledge itself. Thoth, scribe of the gods, keeper of secrets, master of wisdom and writing. To him, the Egyptians attributed the invention of hieroglyphs, the measurement of time, the mysteries of astronomy. His words were said to shape order from chaos. And in some legends, there was a book. His book, the Book of Thoth. Unlike ordinary papyri, this was no collection of hymns or rituals. It was said to contain the very speech of the gods, knowledge so powerful that anyone who read it would gain mastery over the earth, the sea, even the heavens themselves. With its words, one could command animals, speak with spirits, and understand the divine language that shaped creation. But with such promise came danger. Every tale of the Book of Thoth carries the same ending: ruin. One legend tells of Prince Neferkaptah, who discovered the hidden book buried beneath the Nile, locked away in iron chests, guarded by serpents and traps. When he finally claimed it and read its words, he gained immense power. Yet the gods, angered that a mortal dared to wield their wisdom, cursed him. His wife and child died, and Neferkaptah himself drowned, buried with the book so no one else could find it. Another tale says the book resurfaced centuries later, tempting others with the same promise. Each time the result was destruction, madness, death, or divine punishment. Some scholars suggest these stories were allegories, warnings against seeking forbidden knowledge, a way to remind priests and scribes that certain mysteries were meant for the gods alone. Yet the persistence of the legend suggests something deeper, that even in a land filled with sacred texts, one book stood apart, feared for what it might unleash. Whether the Book of Thoth ever truly existed is unknown. No copy has been found. Perhaps it was a myth, a symbol of humanity's eternal hunger for wisdom. Or perhaps fragments still lie hidden, buried in tombs, waiting for someone bold or reckless enough to open them. And if they do, the stories suggest the ending is already written. For in the myth of the Book of Thoth, knowledge does not enlighten, it destroys. Not all dangerous books belong to the distant past. Some are modern, written in familiar languages, published on ordinary presses, sold in bookshops like any other. And yet their words have carried consequences as deadly as any curse. In 1988, a novel was published that would ignite one of the fiercest controversies in literary history. Salman Rushdie's The Satanic Verses. On the surface, it was a work of magical realism, blending history, myth, and fiction in a dreamlike narrative, but within its pages, some passages were seen as deeply offensive to Islam. Almost immediately, the book was banned in several countries. Protests erupted around the world, some turning violent. The anger grew until, in 1989, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khomeini, issued a fatwa, a religious decree, calling for Rushdie's death. From that moment, the author's life changed forever. He went into hiding under police protection, moving from safe house to safe house, living under constant threat. Publishers and translators who worked on the book were attacked. Some were even killed. A novel, just words on a page, had become a death sentence. What the Satanic Verses revealed is how deeply stories can cut. For some, books are not just fiction. They are weapons, insults, challenges to belief and identity. And when belief is powerful enough, words can feel like wounds. This was not the first time a book provoked such fury, and it will not be the last. History is filled with works that sparked riots, mass bans, or violent backlash. But the case of the Satanic Verses is one of the clearest reminders that even in the modern age, long after the burning of grimoires and medieval heresy trials, authors can still be hunted for what they write. The danger here does not come from curses or from forbidden knowledge hidden in symbols. It comes from the raw power of interpretation, from what people believe the words mean and how far they will go to silence them. For Rushdie, survival has meant living in the shadow of his own creation, a novel that made him both celebrated and condemned. Decades later, the threat still lingers, proving that a book does not need to be ancient to be deadly. And so the story of cursed texts continues, not in dusty libraries, but in the headlines of our own time. Proof that the written word, fragile as ink, can still shake nations, divide faiths, and endanger the life of the person who dares to set it down. Some books are feared because they hold mysteries we cannot solve. Others because they contain rituals no one dares to perform. But the most dangerous books of all are sometimes the ones that lie and are believed. At the dawn of the 20th century, a strange text began to circulate in Russia. It was called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. It claimed to be a secret manual, a record of Jewish leaders meeting in the shadows, plotting to control the world through politics, finance, and the press. Written in the form of minutes, it described in detail a supposed conspiracy for domination. But it was a lie. The book was not the record of any real meeting. It was a forgery, cobbled together by Russian secret police, borrowing passages from earlier political satires and twisting them into something sinister. There was no counsel, no conspiracy, no truth. And yet people believed it. From its first publication in 1903, the Protocols spread like wildfire. It fueled anti-Semitic riots in Russia. It was translated into dozens of languages. By the 1920s, it had reached the United States, Britain, and beyond, even when exposed as a fake. As newspapers and scholars repeatedly demonstrated, it refused to die. Its most devastating impact came in the 1930s. In Germany, the Nazi regime embraced the Protocols, using it as a propaganda to justify persecution. Adolf Hitler himself referenced it in Mein Kampf. The lies of the text became fuel for hatred, feeding a fire that would culminate in the Holocaust. A forgery had become one of the deadliest books in history. And still, even today, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion continues to circulate. It appears online, reprinted by extremist groups, cited by those seeking someone to blame. Over a century later, the lie persists. This is the danger of words disguised as truth. Not because they contain hidden wisdom or forbidden rituals, but because they appeal to fear. They take the shape of evidence, convincing those who want to believe, and in doing so, they create enemies out of neighbors. The Protocols remind us that a book does not have to be old or mystical or cursed by gods to be deadly. All it needs is belief, and belief, when it is built on lies, can destroy nations. Not every dangerous book speaks of demons or curses. Some are far simpler, printed in plain words, their power lying not in the occult, but in the ideas they spread. For kings and empires, these books were just as terrifying as any grimoire, because they did not summon spirits, they summoned revolutions. In the late 18th century, a pamphlet began to circulate across Europe. Written by Thomas Paine, it was called Rights of Man. Its message was clear and radical. Ordinary people had natural rights, and no king, no government could strip them away. Monarchy itself, Paine argued, was nothing more than tyranny dressed in tradition. To us now, the words may sound like common sense, but at the time they were fire. Governments banned the book, printers were arrested, and Paine himself was charged with treason. Yet the words escaped containment. They fueled debates, inspired uprisings, and gave voice to a truth rulers had long feared. That power could belong to the people. Almost a century later, another book appeared. Written in 1848 by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, the Communist Manifesto was slim, barely a few dozen pages. But within it was a vision that promised to overturn the world. "Workers of the world, unite," it declared. To the ruling classes of Europe, this was not a call for discussion. It was a call for war. The manifesto was banned again and again, but it spread underground, translated into dozens of languages, carried in the pockets of laborers and radicals. For some, it was a blueprint for liberation. For others, a nightmare of disorder and rebellion. Either way, its impact cannot be denied. Across the 19th and 20th centuries, it shaped movements, toppled governments, and redrew the map of the world. Books like these carry no curse, no legend of destruction. Their danger is different. It lies in their ability to plant seeds in the mind, ideas that grow quietly, that spread, that change the way entire societies see themselves. For kings, these were books of heresy. For the oppressed, they were books of hope. For history, they were turning points bound in paper and ink. And so we see that the power of books takes many forms. Some terrify with shadows and superstition. Others terrify because their words are clear, sharp, and undeniable. A curse may destroy a single reader, but an idea can topple a throne. For every dangerous book we can hold in our hands, there are others that exist only in whispers. Manuscripts rumored but never found. Volumes said to be so perilous, so powerful, that they are hidden away, locked in vaults or perhaps destroyed, though their legends linger. Some of these are grimoires, the so-called black books of sorcery. Scholars of the occult speak of texts like Liber Spirituum, a supposed compendium of summoning rituals, cited in fragments but never discovered in full. Others whisper of the Ars Notoria, a book said to grant instant mastery of any subject to those who could read its prayers correctly. Whether these manuscripts were real or inventions of fearful imagination, no one can say with certainty. And then there are the rumors of the Vatican's secret archives. Deep beneath Vatican City lies a collection so vast and sealed that only a handful of scholars are ever granted access. Within its climate-controlled chambers are letters, decrees, and records spanning centuries. But some believe there is more. That among the shelves are manuscripts never revealed to the public, grimoires, heretical gospels, and forbidden texts deemed too dangerous for human eyes. The truth is difficult to know. The Vatican itself admits to holding documents kept from circulation, though they insist these are simply private records, not books of sorcery or lost gospels. Yet the secrecy fuels the legend. If such texts did exist, surely this is where they would be kept. Out of reach, locked in the dark, guarded not by chains but by silence. History too tells us how easily books can vanish. Fires consume libraries, wars scatter archives, a single lost shipment, a single forgotten chest, and a manuscript can disappear for centuries, or forever. And so the line between history and rumor blurs. Were these books truly written? Or are they warnings, created to remind us of the dangers of forbidden knowledge? What unsettles most is the thought that some of these manuscripts may still exist, that somewhere in a private collection, in a monastery vault, in a locked box no one dares open, lies a text never meant to be read. And if one day it is uncovered, what might its pages reveal? Wisdom long buried, rituals long feared, or truths humanity was never meant to know? Perhaps the greatest danger of vanished manuscripts is not that they are gone. It is that they may yet return. Across this journey, we have opened volumes both real and rumored. We have turned pages that whisper of curses, of conspiracies, of rituals and revolutions. Some of these books survive in glass cases, others only in legend. And yet each one reminds us of the same truth. Ink on a page is harmless until someone believes it. A book is more than parchment, more than paper and print. It is a vessel. Once its words are read, they live again, in the mind of the reader, in the choices that follow. That is why books endure when stone crumbles, when empires fall, when even memory fades. They are living things, reshaping lives long after their authors are gone. Some books spark wonder, others terror. Some ignite wars, while others inspire peace. A single text can topple kings, fuel hatred, or lead generations toward knowledge they were never meant to have. That is why books are burned. That is why some are locked away. And that is why, despite fire and censorship, they keep returning. Because once a book exists, it resists silence. Its words wait, patient, for someone to read them again. We have seen how myths can give birth to grimoires, how lies can masquerade as truth, how forbidden knowledge can tempt readers across centuries. We have seen books that claim to summon angels, demons, even gods. But the truth is, the danger has never been in the ink itself. It has always been in us, in the meaning we give it. in the power we allow it to have. And perhaps the most unsettling thought of all is this: the world's most dangerous manuscripts are not only the ones buried in archives or whispered about in legend. Some are being written now, on paper, on screens, in digital code. Words that may one day reshape the world as surely as any grimoire, any manifesto, any cursed book of the past. So, as we close this journey, let us remember: books endure because we believe in them. And belief, more than ink, more than paper, is what gives them power. Power to enlighten, power to destroy, and always power to remind us that the most dangerous words are the ones we choose to carry with